Good morning. The November 4th, 2020 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order. In the interest of promoting health and safety as we continue to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, the Board of Estimates continues to meet virtually. Madam Comptroller, are there any corrections, additions, or deferrals on the agenda? Madam Comptroller, you're on mute.
Good morning and congratulations, Mr. President. We have protests on pages 105 through 109. And the item is extension of subdivision user and Hawkins Point disposal agreements and approval of emissions control agreement. And there are numerous protests. Please note that we're moving to the non-routine, page 2, the audit report, Department of Human Resources, biennial performance audit, report fiscal years ending June 30th, 2019 and 2018. Also note that we're moving to the non-routine agenda, pages 105 through 109, extensions of subdivision user and Hawkins Point disposal agreements and approval of emissions control agreement. Please note that the Honorable Mayor Bernard C. Young will be abstaining on the following pages: page 12, item 2, page 13, item 5, page 14, item 6, and page 57. Please note that the Honorable Brandon Scott will be abstaining on the following pages: page 12, item 2, page 13, item 5, page 14, item 6, page 57. Please note that the Honorable Comptroller Joan Pratt will be abstaining on page 21, item 2. Please note that Acting Solicitor Mrs. Dana Moore, there are no abstentions. And please note that for Acting DPW, Mr. Matthew Garbar, there are no abstentions. That is it, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Comptroller. I would direct the board members' attention to the memorandum from my office of November 2nd, 2020, identifying matters to be considered as routine items, yes, with the corrections and additions that have been made by the Comptroller. I will entertain a motion to approve all the items contained in the routine agenda.
Good morning, Mr. President. Congratulations on your election as mayor-elect. Before I make a motion, I do want to share a correction that I failed to share because of the holiday. On page 106, at the very top, first sentence, says the incinerator is owned by NMWDA. NWMDA should be stricken and replaced with the word Wheelabrator. The sentence would read, the incinerator is owned by Wheelabrator and formerly called the Baltimore Refuse Energy Systems Company, BRESCO. With that, I would move approval of all items on the routine agenda.
My second.
All right. All those in favor of approving all the items on the routine agenda say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. The routine agenda items have been adopted. The first item on non-routine can be found on page 2.
Mr. President, before you go any further, can I offer congratulations?
Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
I want to offer my congratulations to you on a great election, and I wish you the very best. And if there's anything that I can do to help you, you know I'm there. Election is over. We got to move forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman.
Item, Madam Councilwoman, you have to wait. The first item on the routine agenda can be found on page 2 of the Department of Audit report. We will hear from the city auditor now. Mr. Auditor, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Madam Comptroller, and members of the Board of Estimates. My name is Josh Pash. I am the City Auditor. I am here today to present the biennial performance audit on the Department of Human Resources. The scope of our audit was fiscal years 2018 and 2019. The objectives of our audit were to determine whether the Department of Human Resources met its performance measure targets, evaluate whether the department has adequately designed internal controls related to the selected performance measures and to follow up on prior findings and recommendations included in the previous performance audit dated November 23rd, 2018. The services that were within the scope of this audit are Service 772, Civil Service Management. This service is responsible for identifying, classifying into occupational groups and establishing compensation levels for the positions of the city workforce. Also, Service 773, COB University. This service offers training courses to Baltimore City employees, and this is a self-supporting function that draws its revenue from city agencies. The performance measures that were included in our scope were for Service 772, average number of working days to fill civil service vacancies. Service 772, percentage of classification and compensation project requests completed within the deadline. And Service 773, number of training participants. According to the budget book for fiscal years 2019, the department did not meet any of the targets of the 3 selected performance measures. As a result, we did not validate the accuracy of the numbers. According to the department, it did not meet these targets because of a staffing shortage, as well as the following. For the percentage of classification and compensation project requests completed within deadline, they noted an increased number of classification actions received from the City of Baltimore agencies, coupled with staffing shortages. For average number of working days to fulfill civil service vacancies, they noted that when they got requests from different city agencies, there was a lot of corrections and incorrect information, and also untimely responses from different agencies for requested information, which caused delays for meeting their goal. For number of training participants, there was a transition to new management in that section. The office was relocated, and there was a lack of training funds allocated to agencies, coupled with the 2018 ransomware. For 2018, the department met 2 of the 3 selected performance measures, which were average number of working days to fill service vacancies and the number of training participants. We did not validate the actual results for number of training participants that met the target because DHR was using a manual process, which they've transitioned from. And we noted several discrepancies between the summary spreadsheet and the supporting documentation. The department used a hybrid process in 2019 and fully transitioned to online registration in fiscal year 20. We evaluated the updated policies and procedures, and we did not note any internal control findings or issues related to that performance measure. For the average number of working days to fill civil service vacancies, we noted that the department developed and implemented a new standard operating procedure to process the average number of working days to fill civil service vacancies. And this was not, the control was not fully effective. We noted that even though there were no discrepancies found in fiscal year 2018, the documentation did not support the 2019 actual results. We noted that the fiscal year 2019 actual results reported in the budget book was 31 days, and that was different from the supporting documentation which we evaluated, which showed 26 days for the average number of working days to fulfill civil service vacancies. During this audit, we followed up on 2 prior period audit findings. One was for Service 772, Civil Service Management, average working days to fulfill civil service vacancies, and that finding was fully implemented. It was regarding consistent reporting in the city budget books for targets, and we noted that that was fully resolved. For partially implemented, it was the same as our second finding, which was the average number of days to fulfill civil service vacancies. And it was the same finding, which was that the actual number of results in the budget book did not agree to those which were in the supported by the documentation. And so we did note that, as I said above, that they did implement new policies and procedures and controls, and yet they were not fully effective. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Auditor. Questions from board members? Director Herbert.
Yes, good morning, Mr. President. Again, I'd like to echo the sentiment of my colleagues and say congratulations to you. Mr. Mayor and other members, distinguished members of the board, my name is Quentin Herbert, Director of Human Resources. We concur with the findings of the audit. I'd just like to give some context around some of these issues. I'll begin with the training, the training piece. With respect to fiscal year 2019 and not meeting the goal, on May 7th, 2019, we all know that the city experienced a ransomware attack, which took us offline for 2 months of fiscal year 19 and a bit of fiscal year 20 as well. And as the city rebounded from the ransomware attack, we were unable to register and conduct those trainings, which by and large took place in our training lab and utilized our computers and our ability to get those up and running. It's worth noting also that for fiscal year 19, the target goal for learning and development, which is number of participants that engage in trainings, increased by 30%. And with all of those challenges for fiscal year 19, with all of those challenges, we saw an increase in fiscal year 19 over fiscal year 18 and the number of participants that engaged in the trainings offered by the Office of Learning and Development. I'm confident that moving forward, that we will meet that goal and actually exceed that goal, as we are currently in the process of offering training to all city employees with respect to Workday. I can now move on to the class and comp, the percentage of projects that are completed in a timely fashion. Right now, we're at 80, for fiscal year 19, we were at 82%, which while it is good from a quality assurance perspective, our goal is 95%. We had two things that impacted our ability to meet that goal. The first of which was an increase or an uptick in the sheer number of projects that we received from agencies. We received over, I believe it was 12,000 requests in fiscal year 19 for projects. The second thing that impacted our ability to meet the goal is staffing. When fully staffed, we have 4 class and comp analysts who actually receive those requests and do the work of completing those requests and making recommendations to the class and compensation chief of that office. In this instance, for fiscal year 19, we've been running at about 2 analysts, and we found that it'd be a hard to fill position. We can hire analysts, they transition out of the agency as compensation is typically an issue for that particular classification in the city. So those 2 issues have impacted our ability to meet our goal of 90% completion rate. However, 82% still means that more than 8 out of 10 requests are processed within the time frame allotted. And then lastly, with the recruitment piece, what I will say is that we developed shortly after I arrived at DHR. The last time that we were audited was a month after I would transition to DHR. And this audit finding was one where we saw problems in how we tracked the number of days to hire and our process. And so we developed an SOP, the full life cycle recruitment process SOP, to allow us to better track how we calculate the number of days to hire, and only accounting for the actions that the Department of Human Resources are responsible for, and making efforts to back out some of the actions that the agencies are required for, so that we can track and measure those things that we have control over. And what we found is that one of the areas where we need to improve is in the budgeting process to make sure that we tabulate the data correctly, because it appears that what we sent over to BBMR was the actual target of 31 days and not what the data was showing us, which we were actually filling those vacancies in 26 days, which put us very, very close to our target. And again, we are putting implementations in place. We currently, since the last audit, have hired Assistant Deputy of Administration who has a background in finance and who also has the ability to do many audits throughout the year to make sure that we are tracking this data properly and maintaining it properly. And also, this is something that will become more automated as we transition to Workday.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, the audit report is noted. The second item on non-routine can be found on pages 105 to 109. Department of Public Works extension of subdivision use agreement of city law, disposal agreements, and approval of emissions control agreement. We have received multiple protests on this item, many protests on this item. We are going to go through. When I call your name, please unmute yourself, and you will have 2 minutes to complete your testimony. We will hear first from Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark. Madam Councilwoman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations on your election. And if the mayor's still listening, my thanks to him for doing such an excellent job of protecting us through this whole upsetting time that we're living in. He's been a great leader. Let me just say, I protest the secretive and sole source procedure surrounding this Bresco contract. The Bresco contract has been delivered directly from negotiations that were closed to routine agenda status. Thank you for letting us, and me anyway, testify, despite its major fiscal and environmental impacts. I protest that a proper public hearing and a promised meeting with City Council have been denied. I protest that alternative waste disposal corporations and systems have not been offered the opportunity to bid on waste disposal, as if Bresco's burn and bury have been recommended as the only option in a changing world of less hazardous technologies. I protest the contract itself. Baltimore County has approved a 5-year contract with Bresco. I think that's a mistake, but a shorter mistake than this contract's. The $40 million Bresco will pay for upgrades will not equal the upgrades in the Baltimore Clean Air Act's requirements, for which this contract is a settlement, or the upgrades required for the recovered health condition of thousands of our residents. Finally, what will we tell our children and grandchildren when they ask 10 years from now, or even sooner, what did you do when there was still time to make a difference? I'm concerned about this 10 years of losing time and losing the chance to participate as a city, a great city, in global warming solutions from the local perspective. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Madam Councilwoman, for your testimony. Next, we will hear from Nia Hunter. Nia Hunter, if you're there, please unmute yourself and begin your testimony. Nia, are you there? Okay. I'm back. Ask Nia at the end. We will hear from Mary Stevens next. Mary Stevens. Mary, are you there?
Yeah, thank you. I was looking for the mute button. I'm going to read the protest that I sent. I'm writing to protest items from the DPW and Law Department, requesting approval to execute extensions of the Hawkins Point disposal agreement with the NMWDA and emissions control agreement with Wheelabrator Baltimore LP. 1, the extensions of the disposal and emissions control agreement would contravene the schedule and the beneficial objectives of Baltimore City Council resolutions. There are three of them. You know them well. 20-0243R, 20-0207R, and 20-0202R. To my knowledge and belief, the city has neither acquired nor presented empirical study of the air quality and public health burdens within the city environment. In the, just as an aside, in the agenda, the contract makes note of emissions limits in Montgomery County. We are nowhere near Montgomery County, and the terrain is entirely different than Baltimore. So, without this empirical evidence, the changes presented by or proposed by the contract really don't warrant deviation from the minimum limits established by the ordinance 18-0306. Therefore, the inferior facilities improvements offered by the Bresco operator. 3, the disproportionate expense assumed by the city at an increasing rate of 2.5% per annum in consideration of an estimated revenue of around $38 million obtained from ash disposal from Bresco during the term of the contract is offensive and imprudent given the liabilities outstanding to remediate the Quarantine Road landfill capacity in the next 5 years. Dependence on the incineration for the city solid waste disposal is a poor compromise between short-term fiscal deficit and capital investment. Extending the contract 10 years, additional years, is premature and by no means instrumental in improving the quality of life for residents such as myself, who are burdened by respiratory illnesses, limited utility and mobility, and safety hazards. These agreements abandon resolution and the reputation of the city as a desirable locale for business and pleasure. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you for your testimony today. Next, we will hear from Shashonda Campbell. Shashonda? Shashonda, if you're there, just take yourself off mute.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. You're good. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shashonda Campbell. I'm with the South Baltimore Community Land Trust. And what I have to say about this Board of Estimates meeting is that, first, I just don't think it's appropriate to have this meeting the day after the election that's going to be voting on a contract with Wheelabrator Bresco Incinerator when residents have been involved in this movement and creating this movement for zero waste for many of years. And this is how it chooses to be told that there's going to be a vote on this contract that we have been asking about for many, many days and weeks about what was going to be happening. We have been in relation talking with a lot of you about like not renewing this contract and letting it residents know and letting the residents' voice be heard. And this was not the appropriate way to do that. We should not be having this Board of Estimates vote on this contract the day after the election. It is not appropriate. It is not appropriate to bungle it with all of the other stuff. It needs to have its own space on the agenda to be talked about, and for residents that have been polluted for many years to have their voices heard against this, because it's not appropriate. We came down here to drop off our protest. We have been emailing. We just found out how to be involved in this meeting, and that is not, again, that is not appropriate. It's not okay, and we will not stand for that. We will continue to push for zero waste, and we wish and hope that our city would follow that lead. There was no contract opening up for other companies that would love to do zero waste and help us move forward, but for this wannabe renewal of 10 years, it's not appropriate and it's not okay, and we will not stand for that. And we will continue to fight for zero waste because that's what we want to see, that respects our lives and is not the number one polluted here in Baltimore City.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you for your protest. We will now hear from Gwen Du Bois.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Gwen Du Bois. I'm president of Chesapeake Physicians for Social Responsibility, 700 activists, physicians, and other health professionals, and many of us are from Baltimore. I am a Baltimore resident, and I just want to say personally, I'm just appalled at the lack of transparency and lack of democracy. You know, we're all dealing with these results of the election nationally. Congratulations to you, Brandon Scott, for your victory. But this is just not a way to proceed, to sneak this in the day after the election and sneak it with a lot of other things. My concern as a physician is the health consequences and the environmental injustice of the single largest industrial polluter in the state, and the people who are downwind and who are always number one in the state for sources of stationary pollution, toxic pollution, and other kinds of pollution. The pollutants emitted from the incinerator include deadly things like fine and ultrafine particulate matter, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, heavy metals, including mercury, volatile organic compounds, and dioxin is created in the smokestack. And even with these upgrades, as other people have mentioned, it's not going to be enough, and particularly with nitrogen oxide. And each of these pollutions is associated with serious health consequences. Nitrogen oxide pollution is associated with worsening of asthma, emergency room visits, and hospitalization. Nitrogen dioxide and the fine and ultrafine particulate matter reduce lung function in children. A recent study demonstrated those levels of pollution are reduced, when they're reduced, improvement happens in lung function. So if we could change this and stop putting this stuff in the air, and particularly people who are downwind, Curtis Bay, Hawkins Point, Brooklyn, their children are disproportionately affected. A higher level of lung function in adulthood may decrease the risk of respiratory conditions and may lead to longer life. So it contributes to premature death and adverse health outcomes. Nitrogen dioxide and volatile organic compounds are precursors to ozone. Children who play in areas with high ozone are more likely to develop asthma, and Baltimoreans have suffered with a disproportionate amount of asthma. In addition to the direct health costs of illness, sick days for asthma with children lead to missed school, which can impact learning. Parents miss work and affects their income. So and then there's climate to all of us. And the Bresco incinerator emitted more than 27 tons of of carbon dioxide. It's much more than that. I'm sorry, there were 27 tons of fine particulate matter in 2017. And fine particulate matter is heart disease, lung cancer, asthma. I mean, it's just a potpourri of terrible, terrible illnesses. And as I was saying, there are 762,000 tons of greenhouse gases that were emitted in 2017. So yeah, these controls, which are only partial, may decrease the sum, but this is no way to handle our waste. I mean, putting the waste into the air and sending it downwind to certain communities that have already been burdened with so much downwind pollution is not fair. It's not just, and it shouldn't be happening. And we have so much hope in this new Baltimore city government. It's very disheartening, and I'm just astounded. And I please hope that you reverse this process. This process is not democratic, and we should be looking at the risks of Bresco and not just the benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Greg Sawtell.
Man, we are going to now go to Greg Sawtell. Greg, are you there? If you're there, Greg, just unmute yourself and begin talking.
Everybody hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, Greg.
Excellent. Good morning, everybody. I just want to echo a lot of the sentiments that others have expressed. There's real concerns regarding the transparency of this process, the ability to participate directly. That's fundamental. We're deeply disappointed by that. I want to share what I think is at stake here, though. This is about the next 10 years of our city and whether our fundamental right to breathe clean air is going to be respected or not. We've known for the past 3 years some of what the massive impacts of this facility are, and that's $55 million in health damages from one pollutant alone, PM 2.5. That's been studied by one of the top public health officials in the country and supported by the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, which is an organization we all know and love and depend on to make our city and our region a healthier, stronger place. This is not controversial. Bresco is the worst air polluter in the city. It's not controversial that zero waste represents an opportunity for the city to invest in new infrastructure that we desperately need to create the kinds of jobs that sustain families. Not controversial. What is controversial is advancing a contract term to the Bresco incinerator that even Bresco's lobbyists weren't seeking. Bresco's lobbyists were seeking 5 years tops. So the question on the table is, why are we finding ourselves day after election in a situation where we're looking to extend a 10-year contract to a facility? I know that question hasn't been answered. We haven't had the opportunity to have good faith dialogue with the principal actors. That's what we want. So we're calling for an honest hearing on this where we can sit down, delay this today. We were already committed at a public Judiciary Committee hearing of the City Council by Solicitor Moore that before any action like this was taken, that we would have that public venue, that there'd be additional City Council hearing, there'd be an opportunity for the public to come forward. We haven't had that. No one can disagree that that is a respectable thing to request. We haven't been given it, which is disrespectful, period. And we should not proceed this morning with this motion to extend 10 years without an honest hearing. Everyone knows in their heart of hearts, because we've heard it from them directly, decision makers on this panel, that this has not been given a fair shake. Don't do this. Do not disappoint our basic commitment to a democratic process. We can't let go of that. If we do, we've lost the basic fabric that it takes to deal with a complex issue like this. Don't let us down. Do the right thing. Take the right stand on this. You may disagree ultimately with our path forward. You may think that the best Baltimore can do right now is incinerate the county's waste and the city's waste and materials. If you think that, come forward and say it directly. Put that position out there. Let's have a discussion. Let's have a debate. Let's actually analyze it. Okay? But until we've done that together with stakeholders, we can't move forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Next, we will hear from Hannah Lynn. Hannah, if you're there, unmute yourself and begin your testimony. Are you there, Hannah? All right. We are going to now hear from Nicole Fabricant. Nicole, if you're there, please unmute yourself and begin your testimony. All right. We are going to hear from Toby Harris. Toby, if you're there, please unmute yourself and begin your testimony. All right. We are going to hear from Catherine Esky. Catherine, if you're there, please unmute yourself and begin your testimony. All right. We will hear from Peggy Meyer. Peggy, if you're there, please unmute yourself and begin your testimony. All right. Christopher George. Christopher, if you're there, please unmute yourself and begin your testimony. All right. Dr. Matt Lewis. Dr. Lewis, if you're there, please unmute yourself and begin your testimony.
Yes, so hello everyone, my name is Matt Lewis. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at Johns Hopkins in the Neuroscience Department, and I've been working with the Zero Waste Coalition for the entirety of the year, since February, since they announced this. I have to say that I echo everything else that my colleagues have said today. This is a non-transparent process that makes a hugely consequential decision in secret. A routine agenda item, apparently. This is not a routine thing. This is a once every 10-year thing. We're talking about health pollution. We're talking about a serious polluter in our city that will not really be discussed. If you actually think this is the best option for Baltimore, say so. If you want to vote for it, yes or no, do so. But don't vote for it as part of this large process that no one can hold you accountable. I find this to be really problematic. I find this to be just kind of a slap in the face to all organizers, all community members who've been working hard on this issue. If you cannot say yes or no to the public, you shouldn't be voting on this issue at all. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Next, we will hear from Dominic Serino. Dominic?
Yes, thank you. I agree with everything that my friends have said before. I also would like to point out that the time that the Baltimore City residents had the closest they had to an opportunity to decide on this issue democratically, we voted for Brandon Scott for mayor in the primary when he had a campaign promise to close Bresco. And that was the one residents had an opportunity to decide on this democratically, and we've heard their voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Next, we're going to hear from Peter Machete. Peter, if you're there, unmute yourself and begin your testimony. All right. We will hear next from Kylie Baker. Kylie, if you're there, please begin your testimony. All right. Next, we will hear from Tyler McCafferty. Tyler, if you're there, please begin your testimony. Next, we will hear from Dante Swinton. Dante, if you're there, please unmute yourself and begin your testimony. Dante, are you there? All right. We will now hear from Molly Sherman. Molly, if you're there, please begin your testimony. Okay. Meleny Thomas. Meleny, if you're there, please begin your testimony.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning. Good morning, Meleny.
Good morning. Thank you, Council Member, Mayor Young, everybody. Thank y'all for allowing us to speak. And I really hope that, I echo all the sentiments that everyone has just shared. There has been no transparency and full transparency around this issue. And we really need the opportunity for the people, the advocates, the children that are overburdened, the youth leaders that are leading this work to really have a voice and have a say. We cannot bundle this decision. It is a major, major decision and major commitment for the city that we need to give room and space to discuss. And we really hope that today that we delay this vote so that we can have a democracy, so that we can have an opportunity to share our concerns even further than we have before. We really cannot rush. This isn't something that we rush. It's in the high anticipation and anxiety that we're in right now under this election. We cannot just make a decision like this that will lock us in for another 10 years. We deserve and demand a future that looks greener, that will bring jobs with all the job loss that people are experiencing now. We need to be looking at infrastructure that will truly create greener, cleaner jobs and help our economy. This is personal for me. I live in the community, right? I experienced this. My neighbor died from lung cancer. And it's not, this issue is so much greater. It really is about our now and our future. And we cannot make a decision that would lock us in for another 10 years. And again, I'm hoping that we can delay this vote and we can really have a true discussion and true plan for how to move Baltimore forward so they can be the leader for zero waste. Because I believe that we can do it if that is our priority and if we put people over profit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Meleny. Thank you so much for your testimony. We will now hear from the law department.
Good morning, everyone. Dana Peterson Moore, Acting City Solicitor. I want to begin with the belief that has guided me since I took on this responsibility as Acting City Solicitor. We can all agree that we want and deserve cleaner air. That is the guidepost with which I have taken on the responsibility of trying to untease and untwist what to do with the Wheeler-Brader situation. And the situation is this. Baltimore City Council passed the Clean Air Act, I believe in 2018, 2019. It was very quickly, it was done for very good reasons. And it set out expectations that Baltimore City required be met by the incinerator. Very quickly after that legislation passed, a lawsuit was filed by Wheeler-Brader asserting that the city council had usurped the authority of federal agencies and state agencies that set limits on air emissions. The city solicitor's office opposed that litigation. As it moved forward, the city was found to have violated and usurped the authority of the regulators. We went back and forth as to whether or not to note an appeal. The challenge with the court ruling and the difficulty in deciding whether or not to appeal is that Judge Russell, who wrote the opinion regarding the litigation, regarding the Clean Air Act, wrote a very good opinion. And it appeared from our strong, thorough legal analysis that there was a good chance that we would not prevail on appeal. And that's concerning because if we were to lose that appeal, we would have no ability to force the changes that all of you on this call, that the Baltimore City Council had legislated, and that we all feel is important for Baltimore. The law department decided in consultation with Mayor Young. I consulted with the previous city solicitor and our legal team and our appellate team, and we decided that though our chances of prevailing were not strong, what was strong was the need to take some action on behalf of Baltimore and all of you on this call and all of the people that are not on the call. So we noted the appeal and we began working on it. We have an excellent legal team that handles the appeals, and I have great confidence in their ability. But as we proceeded, my confidence in our ability to win was being chipped away, and that concerned me as the chief lawyer for the city at this time. We were approached with the opportunity to consider how to settle the claim. You know, obviously, Wheeler-Brader wished to continue to work with Baltimore in this region. Baltimore needs to have good trash management. Baltimore also needs to move forward with its zero waste plan. And Baltimore has done a lot of work. Shoshanda, who spoke, I've followed your work for a good while. I know what you do. I know what your advocacy. A number of the advocates on here, Dante Swinton didn't speak, but I follow you. I know your work and I have great respect for it. And it's important because you hold us accountable. But as we move forward, and the concerns about the success of the lawsuit really did drive our discussions. We were given proposals from Wheeler-Brader, and we went back and forth. And this is what we do as lawyers. We go back and forth and we try to figure out, are there terms that we can agree to? As this process became more rich, more full, more certain, I reached out to two city council people that were really the lead proponents of the Clean Air Act. I reached out to Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark. Mary Pat Clark is my councilwoman. I live in District 14. We have worked alongside one another on many issues. If you see, we buy houses signs and you take them down yourself, thank you, Mary Pat Clark. She did that. She did that because I and my husband asked her to. So that's the advocacy that I bring to this. I respect her. I appreciate her. I had to take a different path from her on this situation. I also reached out to Councilman Ed Reisinger, and we talked. We talked for more than 4 hours combined, separate conversations. And I took the time to explain to both of them, this is where we are in the negotiation process. These are the terms that Wheelabrator is bringing to the law department for us to consider whether or not we would ever present to Mayor Young. And I explained what was happening and what the considerations were. I also explained to both of them, and then eventually to council members individually, that the law department and the Department of Public Works were working on 3 different streams, approaches to how are we going to get cleaner air in Baltimore? How are we going to resolve this lawsuit in a way that gives certainty to Baltimore? How can we reach an agreement that I can be proud of? I am a grandmother. I have 3 grandchildren. I have one who has asthma. I have one who I have literally had to hold in my lap and administer treatments so that he could simply breathe. I don't take this lightly. I do not take this lightly. I am the chief lawyer for the city, and I have to make a hard decision. And I have to make a decision and a recommendation for everyone. And so I'm also a lawyer. I'm a litigator. I'm a trial lawyer. I am trained up in understanding what my cases are about. So I listened to Councilwoman Clark. I listened to Councilman Reisinger. I listened to the council people who were part of the vote to create the Clean Air Act. I reached out to scientists. I reached out to the Environmental Protection Agency leadership. I asked, what are we dealing with here? What can we do? I didn't just talk to Wheelabrator. I didn't just talk to DPW. We put a lot of time and effort into understanding the law, what our opportunities were, how we could win, how we could lose. In the end, I was very, very, very concerned, and I remain very concerned that if Baltimore City loses its appeal, we lose every opportunity we have to assure a cleaner, greener Baltimore through the Clean Air Act. And the reason we're here today is because our legislators took the time to care enough about this city and all of you on this call to create that act. Again, as the negotiations became fuller, I reached out to as many members of the city council as I could. I do think it's great to have one meeting with everyone, but I spent more than 30 minutes up to an hour, hour and a half with the individual city council members that I could reach. And I explained, here's where we are, here's what we're doing. And it wasn't just working on negotiating a settlement and an agreement with Wheelabrator. With the help and support of the Department of Public Works, we approached the Department of Finance and the Bureau of Budget and Management to see what can Baltimore City afford if we don't go forward with an incinerator. What can Baltimore City afford if we do? What are the costs? So we did that analysis and we got that information, but we didn't stop there. We reached out to the Department of Planning. What does this all mean for Baltimore if we shut down the incinerator? What does Baltimore do? What does it mean? What does life without this incinerator look like? How do we function? And the most chilling data point to me was that although Baltimore does have plans to get to zero waste, they're not functioning. They're not happening. They are not enacted. They are on paper. They will happen. They will happen, but we're not ready yet. And then we had the overlay of the pandemic, and we lost the ability to collect recycling because so many of the Department of Public Works members were ill. And the realities of the challenges of waste became real for all of us. I happen to enjoy going to Sisson Street. Not everyone does. But that's no way to live, and we can't ask Baltimore to continue that. So as things evolved, we ended up with an agreement that the most important was that there is no, quote, put or pay clause in that settlement agreement. And that's very important because there is no minimum amount of trash that Baltimore must meet as it takes it to the incinerator. That allows Baltimore, and this is so important, this is where we are with Wheelabrator, and this is where we are with our zero waste plan. Because of the way we negotiated this agreement and the way it's presented to the mayor and city leadership, as we continue with the incinerator, because there is no put or pay plan, we are able gradually and consistently to bring down our reliance on Wheelabrator and to bring up our own zero waste plan. Eventually they will meet, and soon they will exceed one another, and then we will not have Wheelabrator. We negotiated that. That was very, very important. But the most important thing is that we negotiated terms by which Wheelabrator would immediately begin revising and upgrading its facility so that it meets the emissions levels that are in the Clean Air Act. The one exception is that the nitrogen oxide levels will be reduced by 50%. Right now, I believe they're at 150. They will come down to 100. We're not just taking their word. We built in accountability measures. There will be 3 tests of the stacks each year. There will be penalties for failure to meet the emission standards that we set. We are, I think the most important takeaway is that these agreements that are on the table today are the beginning. They are the beginning of a certainty for the city of Baltimore, for all of its residents. One of the voices that we don't hear much of are the silent majority, and I have worked to find them. I have read as much as I can about what all of this means. But again, the most important is that we can continue the city's push for zero waste. That is in no way precluded. In fact, that is built in, it is baked into this agreement because we do not have a put or pay term. It's important that you understand that this has not been a secret agreement. And I'm going to close with this because I think that's what's really, really important. First of all, we're in City Hall. This is the office. I'm speaking as the acting city solicitor. There are no secrets here, which is why I began talking to the city council and providing individual briefings in August and September of 2020 as I had something to say, as I had something real to share. On September 26, 2020, I sent an email to the city council asking for the opportunity to give a full briefing to the full city council. I ended up giving a briefing to the office of the city council president. On October 2, 2020, I and other members of the city law department, Department of Public Works and Finance participated in a 5-hour hearing, which Mike Ewell referred to as grueling, and it was long. The law department presented for more than an hour, and a large part of that presentation was just what I have shared with all of you right now, the terms of the settlement, and that it was happening, and that we were moving forward, and that I personally was pleased that the agreement would allow the city to actually stand up its own zero waste program and to move towards it. That was really important. There was also information on the financing and the consequences, but that was a very robust hearing. Many of you that are on the call today and have submitted protests were also part of that hearing. And I believe some of you even testified. I stayed on the hearing the entire time. I heard all of you. I want you to know that your words and your message and your wants and your desires and your demands, I've heard them. We have heard them. We have incorporated, we're very careful to include those considerations as we move forward with trying to develop a settlement agreement that is respectful of all of you and all of you who are not on this call. All of you who are not on this call, which is really the majority. On October 16, or 17 or 18, I'm not recall which, but a couple of weeks after the hearing, I received another call from Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark. We had an additional conversation about what this settlement means. I did go back and listen to the hearing, the 5-hour hearing on October 2nd. I did not hear any commitment to do a public hearing. that is not in my ability to do, but I did make a commitment to brief the full city council. And I was able to make that commitment because I'd already reached out and asked for that meeting. I'd asked for that meeting on September 26th. That didn't happen. I didn't have the opportunity. I never got an invitation to attend a city council hearing, but that didn't stop me. I like to think that most of the city council members are aware. Certainly all had the opportunity to hear that October 2nd 5-hour hearing and to hear my testimony and that of my colleagues. That's where we are. I am very aware of all of the concerns. I do think that what's before this body today does move Baltimore towards a healthier, greener, cleaner environment. And I very much hope that the recommendation will be taken up. Thank you very much. And I will defer to the Department of Public Works in the event that they wish to add to my comment.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor. Thank you. I actually, and it's my apology, as I was trying to go through all of them, I missed 2 individuals who rightfully filed a protest and were not called on, so I'm going to call on them now. I'm going to start with Mike Ewald. Mike, you are up next, and then we're going to go to Joe Murray following Mike. Mike, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, and also congratulations on your election, Council President and Mayor-elect. Many people signed up to testify and aren't here, and it may be that they were not given the link. I was never emailed back from the city with the link to this, and there were a dozen people who I heard their names go by and they didn't get on. I saw one in the comments saying she also didn't get the link or get called. So procedurally, there's some issues there that would be one of many arguments for a delay in this decision. There was also an injunction filed, and I was surprised that Solicitor Moore did not mention that since she was emailed with that this morning. It was filed in court this morning. There was no sooner time to be able to actually file it given the closure of the court yesterday for the election day. But that injunction was filed by 2 council members, by Energy Justice Network and by Trilogy Financial Group. One of the companies that has been in touch with the city for over a year, was actually listed in the city's draft solid waste management plan over the summer as a possible option. I believe DPW Director Garbark, Acting Director Garbark, even reached out to them in recent weeks about building some infrastructure at one of the city's transfer stations. And yet they were not given the opportunity to bid because this is not being put out to competitive bidding as is required. And that's why there's a legal injunction filed this morning arguing that this vote should not take place because there's a competitive bidding requirement in the city charter that's being violated if this no bid agreement goes forward. Incineration is the most expensive and polluting way to manage waste or to make energy. We've documented that. We know is true for this region. And we know that there are other options that are not limited to so-called WTE, which is the justification on your agenda here for why there is no other competitive bidding allowed, is that there's only one of these so-called waste to energy facilities in the Baltimore metropolitan area, and therefore that's the only option. Well, we know there are other waste companies that have approached the city that want to either haul the waste through a transfer station to out-of-state landfills, which no one likes landfills, but we know and we study this and we know for a fact that even with long hauling distances, it's worse to burn it close to home than to ship it off to a landfill further away. And companies were not being given an opportunity to bid if they could do that. Other companies, even ones with waste to energy, so to speak, technologies like anaerobic digestion, which is Trilogy Financial Group, one of the plaintiffs in the injunction filed this morning, was not given an opportunity to bid, even though the justification is that there are no so-called WTE, waste energy facilities, in the Baltimore area. There's a company that can provide it cheaper, that wants to, that's been talking to the city, has gotten good feedback from the city, they tell me, and is being passed by because of this. We have been putting forward and have not been able to sit down with Solicitor Moore or other people in the city to make our case for why all we need to do is close a 2-year gap between the expected closure of the current landfill in 2024 and the expansion of that landfill in 2026. And we believe that can be accomplished by using existing transfer stations for certain amounts of the waste, by putting zero waste systems into place that can be done quickly, like the recycling bins that there's already work toward and composting. These can be done within a few years to close that gap that we don't have to worry about until 2024. There's no need to rush this and arbitrarily limit this contracting to only one vendor that's being considered. And I'll finally point out that DCs chair their environmental committee of their city council just informed their Department of Public Works that they should not move forward with a 3-year renewal on their incinerator contract. This is for an incinerator in Northern Virginia, because they promised the council to look at alternatives 2 years ago and haven't, and that they should only do a 1-year extension just to buy the time that Baltimore City already has, because there's still a year, to look into alternatives and do those alternatives because they're less damaging than burning our waste and turning it into air pollution. Even with these new requirements in the contract, it will still be the largest air polluter in the city. So I urge that this be tabled and let the court decide what the proper procedure is before we move forward.
Thank you. Joe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilman Scott, and congratulations on the election results. I'm in front of City Hall right now, and we have artwork that was crafted by several youth leaders in South Baltimore. And this is how they choose to spend their time. And I have had the honor of working with several youth in Baltimore City around environmental justice issues. I've worked with Baltimore Beyond Plastic. I've worked with for individuals from For Your Voice. And usually what I walk away with when I'm working with the youth is I'm just always in awe. This is something that they, in their adolescence and all of the struggles that adolescence brings with it, this is something that they see, that they spend time to talk with people around. They challenge themselves, they're vulnerable, and they regularly continue to show up and to fight. And what we really need to be doing for our youth is listening to them, is giving them space, making sure that they are seen and that they are heard. And that's something that I really strongly voted for when I was casting my ballot, was the space for youth to have voice in city government, especially under your upcoming term. So especially with looking at, what our youth have lost. They've lost their communities. They're not in school currently. A lot of youth that I speak with are struggling with anxiety and depression. They also are now looking at the national results of this election and feeling a lot of fear. What we really need to make sure that we're doing is we are giving them some sense of hope, that they have leaders that are able to take time to listen to them, to think about their future. Climate change isn't going somewhere. It's not just going to disappear. It's not going to come and go with elections and who's in power or how many lawsuits or anything like that. It's here, and we need to be curbing it now. Like, this is a future for our youth. And it's imperative. It's going to continue to have the same impacts. I come from upstate New York, and Wheel Aberrator has a facility there right on the shores of the Hudson River. It's like a high housed, like a lot of housing in that area. You have lower income white citizens who are breathing that air. And they are the more vulnerable citizens that are in that area. The choices that we make with Wheel Aberrator as a city for Baltimore feeds pockets for them to continue their damages elsewhere. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. It just feeds them, it gives them power. And we need to reroute, we need to rethink, and we need to be thinking about our future for our children that we work with. Children in our neighborhoods, our families, and we need to think collectively that way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Swinton, the floor is yours. Dante? I can see him. All right. Madam Comptroller, you were off mute. Did you have a comment?
Not at this time, after you call for the vote.
All right. Thank you, Madam Comptroller. Thank you.
Oh, hello. Hi, my name is Heather Haxon. I actually filed a
Heather, you haven't been recognized. Hold on one second, Heather. 1 second. Mr. Swinton, are you there? You are the next person that we had.
Who?
Dante Swinton. Dante, are you still there? I think he may be having technical difficulties because he keeps going on and off of the screen.
It's up to you if you want.
Thank you, Mr. Swinton, if you're there. He's having computer problems. Heather, you may speak. Heather is the last person of protest. Heather, please, I'm sorry about that, but Mr. Swinton was on the screen and then popped off. We were just trying to follow the order. Heather, please, the floor is yours. And just make sure you give us your last name too.
My name is Heather, last name Hax, Hax. And I would like to also be among those who congratulate you on this victory that I worked with Unite here very much to get you elected, Mr. Scott, a lot. And I'm super disappointed that this vote is coming in the routine agenda. And it's so consequential. It is so consequential to determine the future of this city, the quality of our air, the impacts of climate change. And I just reject Dana Moore's framing that this is all because of the Clean Air Act, that we have to move forward with this contract, because that's neither here nor there. We can do this with even the Clean Air Act being rejected. It's a dangerous precedent, but it's possible. So zero waste, the zero waste infrastructure can be built in the year leading up to that contract renewal. I have no clue why we're doing this right now. No clue whatsoever. We have a whole year to build a zero waste infrastructure, to get recycling back up, to actually invest in a clean energy future, to create jobs, to create clean air, to create composting facilities. There's over 30 years y'all did nothing to create this future. We can do this. We have to do this. We have to think bigger than the status quo. This is insulting. Okay, hang on. Sorry. You cannot keep incineration going and then keep saying, oh, but we're going to lower air pollution. We're gonna not poison these communities. This is a failure of leadership on the highest level. And I do not understand why Jack Young is the person who is making this decision. He was not voted into office as mayor. He was not elected, and he is a lame duck session. And here you all are on this Board of Estimates meeting, just ramming this through because we are all looking elsewhere. And I can't even believe the nerve of the Board of Estimates in doing this. I really worked hard to get you all elected, to get you, Brandon Scott, elected because of your commitment to zero waste, because of your commitment on record, on video, saying that you will shut this down. And here you are bundling this in a routine agenda? How dare you? How dare you? I can't even, and I will support you. I will keep going with you. But when that comes up and you do not actually listen to the people who work their butts off to get you elected, we will primary you. Do you get that? Do you get how we need you to be responsive to the people who are out here in front of City Hall trying our best to make sure that we have good jobs and a livable future? We can do better. You must do better than this. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Dante, I see you're back. Are you good? Dante? All right. I want to thank everybody for coming and testifying today on the non-routine portion of the agenda. Thank you for everyone who let their voices be heard. Madam Solicitor, as there is no more protest, I will. Dante, are you there?
Hey, I'm here.
Go ahead, Dante. And hold
Yeah,
on,
sorry.
before you start, could everyone else please, when speakers are speaking, stay on mute? Because when Heather was speaking, we had an echo because we had several people that were off mute. So please, as Mr. Swinton is speaking, please everyone stay on mute. Go ahead, Dante.
Yeah, sorry about that. My computer has decided that today was the perfect day to start acting up. Yeah, so I mean, I feel like this is probably one of the most frustrating things I've ever seen done by this current administration, the last couple of administrations, to decide to rush this bill just a couple of days, or this contract, just a couple of days after Baltimore County decided to agree to a settlement with Wheelabrator, when they're also in the midst of a lawsuit. Instead of defending a bill that is justified and the law department said was justified, we decided to go into this idea of settling with this company. And for all intents and purposes, it is the Donald Trump of waste management. It sued the county, it sued the city, and now it's trying to get it. And yet, for some reason, we are backing down to that, when in actuality, it makes more sense for us to pursue a more sustainable future immediately. We don't have to sit here for another 10 years leaning on the city's largest air polluter that's been here for 35 years. And then what kind of also baffling to me is that this facility is that old. To decide to extend it for another 10 years is to ask for more trouble. These facilities average about 23 to 30 years max. And yet now we're trying to push it longer because we don't believe in the city of Baltimore to be more aggressive about its zero waste policy. People have probably said it, but the main reason why our recycling program is poor, haven't developed these programs, is the fact that we've depended on this facility. So to choose another 10 years of it means that we, again, are going to depend on this facility. It's not going to allow us to be more aggressive about zero waste. And so I feel like even in the budget discussion, when we were discussing the ban the burn bill with some of the budget folks and Anna Moore and all that, there was no actual conversation from the budget director about what it would look like to move forward building these facilities, or working with these provide cities money to go in that direction. It's simply been, let's burn it, let's deal with it when we come to it, whatever, it's already here. Like, that's short-sighted. It's short-sighted by the current mayor. It would be short-sighted by any future administration. And it just baffles me that we even tried right now to just lump it into everything else, when clearly over the last several years, people have been bugged out about the idea of putting more incinerators or keeping existing incinerators in Baltimore City. So why would we not at least sit on this, have a larger discussion about the fact that it's actually cheaper to build our own recycling facility, to actually fund our own composting facility, to provide bins to everybody in the city for recycling and composting, than it would be to sit on this incinerator for another 10 years, or even expand the landfill to less than the 2052. Like, it is far more affordable for us to go this direction. And I don't know if it's the combination of classist and subsurface racist perspectives on the way that people can handle waste in the city, but that seems to be where we're going, and it's very problematic to me. So we need to step back and not kowtow to this incinerator company when they know damn well that we have a shot at going in a different direction with this current, or this future mayor, I should say. So, I mean, there's a lot extra to say, but I feel like if we're going to try to just brush this through, we clearly know there's a problem with it. And every single one of you know there's a problem with it if there have been years and years of people fighting against the proposed one at Energy Answers, and now this existing one that's been here for 3.5 decades, the city's largest air polluter. What you're essentially agreeing to is continuing to pollute the city for another 10 years with over 300 pounds of lead every year, hundreds of thousands of pounds of CO2, 2 million pounds of nitrogen oxide. That's things that are contributing to the asthma problem, and to heart disease, frequency of stroke, and the like. So why are we buying into that when there's a better future for the city? We've spoken about a new way forward. This is not a new way forward. We need to do better. Thanks.
Thank you, Dante. Nicole? You're on mute, Nicole.
Okay, thanks, Brendan Scott. I appreciate the opportunity to comment. I also want to reiterate and say congratulations. Like, our hope is that you represent new leadership in this city. We have stood beside you. We have shared some of the stories from South Baltimore. You've come down to South Baltimore, to Curtis Bay, unlike many other politicians of this city that refuse to actually go to the communities that are most impacted by air pollution. We have stood alongside you as we presented, as youth presented, right, about policies for fair development and about zero waste. So I reiterate what Heather Hacks and others said, that we do stand beside you, but we are hoping that you take a really strong stance on this for the future of our children. I've been involved with Free Your Voice organizing for 10 years, a decade of my life. I started down in Curtis Bay with Destiny Watford and some of the youngsters who fought the nation's largest proposal to bring the nation's largest trash to energy incinerator to their community. These kids are incredible. These kids heard that there was a rotating door, right, between O'Malley and private interests, Energy Answers, and started to do some serious research. These kids didn't know what they were going to come up with, but actually through everyday sort of struggles and organizing and coming up with a plan, they spent years of their lives figuring out how to stop Energy Answers. That was one victory, but there remain many more of these youth. And every day I see Marvin Hayes is on this call and many others. We ask, as we're working with youth down in South Baltimore, how many of you experience respiratory illnesses? How many of you have high cases of asthma? The entire class that we teach in Benjamin Franklin raises their hands. This is absolutely unacceptable that we're even on a call considering another 10 years of toxicity in a city that adversely impacts poor brown and Black youth. I can't even, think that this entire process would occur undemocratically, that it would be pushed through by an interim mayor, and that Brendan Scott, in all honesty, we want you to really take a stand around this. We have a plan. You were there when the youth launched their zero waste plan for the future. We need to listen, as someone said at the very beginning of this call, to these youth. These are incredible kids. They're smart, they're capable, they're competent. They have already gathered resources and supports. San Francisco has done this. Many other cities stand to give us an example of what zero waste could truly look like. These kids deserve a better future. We have been organizing for over 10 years to give these kids a decent, healthy future. We want zero waste, and we want it now, and we will not surrender to anything less than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole.
Hi.
Thank you to everyone who came to testify today. Thank you so much. As we have no one else that officially filed a protest that we have before us today, the motion, we will entertain a motion if anyone wants to make a motion on this item. And before I do that, Mr. Mayor, Madam Comptroller, do you guys have anything to say as of right now?
I'd like to make a comment after the vote has been taken, or if you want me to make it now, I'll just.
You can make it after the vote. That's fine, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor.
I'll wait until after the vote, Mr. President.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to vote. Hello?
Oh, Madam Comptroller, are you making a motion?
No.
Oh, he had his.
Mr. President, I move that the protests be rejected and the items be approved as recommended on the board agenda.
Mr. President, I second that motion.
Madam Comptroller, can you repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
Dana second, acting city solicitor seconded. I didn't take my vote yet.
Okay, all those in favor of rejecting the protest and proceeding with the item say aye.
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 All opposed say nay.
Nay, and I would like
Nay. The council president, please note the council president and the comptroller as nay. Madam Comptroller.
Yes, I'd like to explain my no vote on this item. Specifically, I take issue with the extension of the agreement that will allow Wheelabrator to continue burning trash at Bresco plant adjacent to Rush Street at the southern gateway to Baltimore City. The Bresco incinerator is a source of pollution that contributes to high rates of asthma and other health problems in the mostly minority communities that surround it. It has also been the subject of legislation such as the Baltimore Clean Air Act, as well as litigation and controversy for too long. On February 22nd, 2020, young activists from United Workers, along with hundreds of community health and environmental advocates from across the city, announced the launch of Baltimore's Fair Development Plan for Zero Waste. Also, the City Council adopted a resolution in support of the plan on April the 6th of this year. This plan is aimed directly at addressing inequitable health outcomes and harms to communities that arise from the city's waste disposal practices. While I understand that the goals of the Zero Waste Plan will take time and money to implement, extending the contract with Wheelabrator for 10 years through December 2031 locks the city into a course of action that moves us into the wrong direction. I hope the city will rigorously enforce emissions control agreement with Wheelabrator that's included on today's agenda item. I also urge the grassroots activists who have worked so hard on the plan for zero waste to persist in their efforts to implement it and to keep fighting for environmental justice in our city. And for these reasons, I vote no on pages 105 through 109 of today's agenda. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
And we also vote
No,
we say no to this.
no one else can speak. Sorry. Yeah, no, you can't speak at this point. Thank you. But thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to address the extension of the Wheelabrator contract that the board just approved. I believe this agreement represents a fair balance between fiscal prudence and social responsibility. I was president of the City Council when the Clean Air Act passed. I was a strong supporter of that bill, and I'm a supporter of the zero waste approaches adopted by the city. We must find more and better ways to reduce, reuse, and recycle our waste. In March, the Federal District Court for Maryland struck down the Clean Air Act, noting the city oversteps its authority. An appeal was unlikely to succeed, which meant we were facing the possibility that Bresco could continue to operate with no improvement to its admission. That was a scenario I found unacceptable. Wheelabrator and the city began discussions to find middle ground, which has resulted in the agreements we just approved. In exchange for extending our user and disposal agreement for 10 years, Wheelabrator agreed to fund $40 million in emission control system upgrades. The city will pay nothing more than what we have already planned. The agreement have a no put or pay provision, meaning there is no minimum amount of waste we are required to deliver. The emissions upgrades will ensure Wheelabrator meets or exceeds all of the requirements in the Clean Air Act, with the exception of nitrogen oxides.
Zero waste!
Improve
Zero waste! 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 Zero waste!
Mr. Mayor, hold on 1 second. You have to be unmuted.
Okay, the mission upgrades will ensure Wheelabrator meets or exceeds all the requirements in the Clean Air Act, with the exception of nitro oxides. They will be improved by 50%. The extension of the agreement will buy the city time to bring zero waste initiative online in a fiscally prudent manner, while at the same time greatly improving air quality. This is a good and responsible deal. And Mr. President, while I still have the floor, I still have to run the city until you're sworn in on December the 8th. And lame duck status or not, I have to make sure that this city continue to run and run well. And I think I've done that. And for those who beg to differ, I support it. I came to Curtis Bay. I came there. We lived under the incinerator that Johns Hopkins used to burn. I'm suffering with asthma right now and bronchitis. And my father died from lung cancer. So I understand all of this. But we have to have somewhere to send our trash. We talk about compost. We're not even recycling like we're supposed to because the citizens of Baltimore refusing to recycle. I mean, we're moving from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. We have to make sure that our citizens are all on board with recycling, with composting, and all those things so that we can make sure that we have real zero waste. So I just want you all to know that I've done the best that I could. You might not agree with it, but lame duck or not, I have a city to run, and I will continue to run the city. I will continue to do the things we need to do on the Board of Estimates to keep the city functioning. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's be very clear, everyone. Baltimore cannot continue to rely on the incinerator. And even with today's vote, that remains true. The bottom line today is that there is no substitute for actually investing in a zero waste future for Baltimore. In just over a month, I will, thanks to the voters of this city, become the next mayor of Baltimore City. And I will do everything in my power to ensure this is the last time we ever discuss extending the lease and contract and work with Bresco and work to divert as much waste as possible over my term as mayor. We're here today because the city has failed, as was eloquently put by many people today, for decades to take zero waste and reimagining waste seriously. Our city has never fully invested in the infrastructure and education required for a successful transition to zero waste. 85% of people in our city didn't regularly recycle before the issues that have recently come with recycle. We have a lot of work to do, and there is no quick fix. That is not a criticism of the current mayor. It's a criticism of the way that we've done business in this city for far too long. It goes much deeper and further than any one administration. This is despite the tireless advocacy on part of the communities of South Baltimore, some of those individuals who we heard from today, which are disproportionately impacted by this facility, and the advocacy of our city's strong and growing environmental community who have done great work at educating the public and citizens on what we need to do moving forward as a city. I want to personally thank everyone who spoke out at today's meeting. Come December 8th, I trust and I hope and I know that you will hold me accountable. Our city's communities will be better for it. This will not be easy work. This will not be overworked night by any means, and it's going to require the participation of people inside, but most importantly, outside of City Hall. We will all have to work together, and that's what I think about what I can control and the term of head. That is my focus, of us working together, doing the tough work that actually needs to be done to push Baltimore towards a path towards zero waste. We will do that, and we will do that together. Thank you. And as there is no more business before the board, we will recess until bid opening at 12 noon. The board will be in recess next week of November 11th. We will reconvene November the 18th, 2020. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Please stay healthy and stay safe.
Okay, good afternoon. The Board of Estimates is now in session for receiving and opening of bids. As part of the overall effort to limit transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the Board of Estimates is conducting bid openings virtually. Members of the public can call in to listen to bid openings live by calling 443-984-1696 and entering access code 0817325. Board of Estimates meetings are broadcast live on Charm TV, Channel 25 on Comcast Cable, in Baltimore City. Meetings are also streamed on the internet at www.charmtvbaltimore.com/watch-live. The Board of Estimates will continue to conduct bid openings remotely while the state of emergency declared by the mayor of Baltimore and the governor of Maryland remains in effect. I have one addendum to note. Bureau of Procurement, B50005740, Baltimore City Building demolition. Please change the bid due date from November the 4th, 2020 to November 25th, 2020. Thank you. The first item is General Services GS 1680R, Mitchell Courthouse roof replacement with a bid bond. The company is Roofing Sustainable Systems, Inc., doing business as RSSI Roofing Company. With a bid bond, total dollar amount, $2,436,000. $2,436,000. The next bidder is 56K Contracting, Inc.
That would be SGK Contracting, Sam Gale.
Oh, is that S, what is it?
S.
S6, okay. Look like 50.
Oh, let's get an agreement, because on my paper it says SG as in gold, K.
Let me see.
Here it looks like a 6.
Okay.
Hold on, let me see if they have it anywhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like on the bid bond is SGK.
Okay.
SGK Contracting, Inc.
All right, thank you.
With a bid bond. The dollar amount is $1,799,999. $1,799,999. The next bidder is Cole Roofing Company, Inc., with a bid bond. Total dollar amount, $2,946,409. $2,946,409. The next bidder is City Roof Corporation with a bid bond. Total dollar amount, $1,873,600. $1,873,600. The next bidder is Nichols Contracting, Inc. with a bid bond. Total dollar amount, $2,210,530. $2,210,530. The next bidder is Parkinson Construction Company, Inc. with a bid bond. Total dollar amount, $1,644,014. $1,644,014. The next bidder is Simpson of Maryland, Inc. with a bid bond. Total dollar amount, $1,706,445. $1,706,445. And the last bidder is W.M. Slosher Company, Inc. With a bid bond. Total dollar amount, $2,077,000. $2,077,000.
Okay, these will go to the Department of General Services for their review.
The next item.
Hold on just a second. Get rid of my stray marks. Okay, thank you.
Is Bureau of Procurement B50006122, Ford Pursuit Utility Vehicles, hybrid and non-hybrid. The bidder is, let's see, Hertridge Fleet Services, Inc. It's an itemized bid. Prices will not be read. The next bidder is Pacifico Ford Fleet Group. Price will not be read.
Okay, these will go to the Bureau of Procurement.
The next item is Bureau of Procurement B50006065, leasing 4x4 sports utility vehicles. The bidder is All Car Leasing, doing business as Next Car. Total dollar amount, $212,400. $212,400. Is that what you have? Okay. The next bidder is Acme Auto Leasing. Total dollar amount is $269,700. $269,700.
This will go to the Bureau of Procurement.
The next item is Bureau of Procurement B50006135, various hoses and accessories. The bidder is Tipco Technologies. This is an itemized bid, and the price will not be read.
This will go to Bureau of Procurement.
That's it? You good? She good? You good? Oh, there being no more business before this board, it is now adjourned. Thank you.